Pastor Kent Hovind, are you ready to debate Sam Harris?
Don't know who he is, but I'm ready.
Okay. This debate is focusing on the foundations of moral values, whether they be natural or supernatural. Okay. The first, here we go. Sam Harris says, not that there is actual evidence of God, but the reason why people rise to the defense of God is they believe belief in God is the only objectionable framework for morality.
Wow, I don't know anybody that says that. Did you say his name is Sam? Is that who we're talking about here?
Sam Harris, yep.
Sam Harris. Okay, I've heard that name, but I don't remember where from. No, I don't know anybody who says that's the only way to get morals and foundation and standards. No, I think it is the solid one, the correct one, but no, you can have, actually, technically, you would probably have ethics. You wouldn't really have morals.
This call is from the Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office.
Look up the definitions of the words, but no, I would disagree. There are non-Christian communities all over the world and all through history that have had morals or values or ethics or standards. So I disagree with his premise. Go ahead, next statement.
Okay. Right and wrong relate to human well-being, and it is just as clear that extremism, beheading and beating people like Muslim extremists, is not a way to maximize human well-being.
Okay, his standard then to measure things by is human well-being. Hitler thought it would be good for the blonde-haired, blue-eyed Aryan race. It would be to their advantage. It would give them well-being if they eliminate the inferiors, the mentally deficient, the handicapped, physically handicapped or mentally handicapped, the Jews, the blacks, etc. Hitler was trying to advance the well-being of his group. Therefore, by your thinking, Hitler was right. The mother who has a child growing inside of her that she doesn't want, it's to her well-being to get rid of it, have an abortion. I've often said, is it murder to kill a baby 5 minutes after it's born? Oh, yes. Okay, how about 5 minutes before it's born? No, that's a stupid standard to go by human well-being. Who determines what that is? If I determine I would be better off if I had all Sam's money, should I therefore be allowed to go steal it? That advances my well-being. Hello? There has to be a higher standard than that. That would be a rubber ruler. I wouldn't want to live in a house built by a bunch of carpenters that all had rubber rulers.
Yeah.
No, we need a more solid standard than that. Okay, next statement.
Okay. Let's say we found a culture that was removing eyeballs of every third child. Would you then agree we found a culture that was not perfectly maximizing human well-being?
Again, how are you going to standardize this? What if they said, hey, we've got too many people to feed and we need to half blind a third of the population so that they stay home and can't go hunting? What if they could justify doing that and somehow say, well, it does advance our culture, it is good for well-being? The Spartans, back in the 300 BC, they said, well, if a baby's born that isn't up to speed, physically, leave them out, let them starve. We're going to advance the Spartan community. I think this is a really dangerous precedent to say that human well-being is the standard. There would be no way to determine that. Now, his question about this society that blinds or half-blinds every third child, who's going to decide if even that is right or wrong? If that society decided is right, then who is Sam Harris to say, no, it's wrong? This is a really dangerous, slippery slope he's on here. Okay, next question.
Then he says, following up to that, let's say that they are doing it for religious reasons, and that every third should walk in darkness.
Well, it wouldn't matter what their reasons were. If they were religious or financial, or it doesn't matter. Is there any other standard to judge right and wrong by besides human well-being? There have been all kinds of religions that do crazy things. There are people in India who, they want their kids to be crippled, so they beg and get more money, so they purposely break their legs or blind them or something and cripple them and then set them on the sidewalk and people feel sorry and they give money. The mothers and fathers do that to them purposely. Is that wrong? It advances the well-being of the family. If they've already got 9 kids and you cripple one, so people give more money to the family. This is a dumb standard to measure things by. And if you want to talk about religion, evolution is the major religion of the planet. You have to believe in all kinds of things to believe in evolution. Now that cripples students emotionally and morally and mentally to believe they came from a rock. Where the kid who believes that there is no God, there is no standard, your ancestor was an ape and before that it was a rock if you go back far enough, where's the moral standard there? I mean, what are we teaching the kids? You talk about crippling children. It's the teaching of evolution that cripples the children. Stop that insanity right now.
Okay.
Next question.
It is widely believed that there are 2 quantities in this universe. Facts on the one hand that science gives us rigorous discussion of these, but there are values that Christian/creationists can't touch.
Facts and values that Christians can't touch? I don't understand what he's asking there. Or what is he saying? Read that again.
Yeah, it is widely, and I agree with you, it is widely believed there are 2 quantities in this universe. Facts on the one hand, that science gives us rigorous discussion of these. But there are values that Christians can't touch.
That makes absolutely no sense to me at all. I love facts. I taught algebra, geometry, trigonometry. Give me facts. Let's handle them. I think I can explain quite a few of the facts of science, being a physical science teacher and a biology and an earth science teacher. What facts are we talking about here? It's a fact the Earth has many layers of rock in many places. It is not a fact that those layers are different ages over millions of years. It is a fact that the rock layers in the Earth, the sedimentary rock, contains zillions of fossils. Okay, that's a fact. It is not a fact that they're different ages. It is a fact that dogs always produce dogs, and you may get a big dog or a little dog or a hairy dog or a bald dog, but you're going to get a dog. That's a fact. That's all that's ever been observed. Now, if he wants to believe, capital B, believe that this is evidence, these variations within the kind are evidence that they all have a common ancestor, I think that's a faith. That's not a fact. So they freely mix their fact and their faith. So I think that, I don't understand what he's saying here. I don't think he does either. But go ahead.
As a moderator, looking at the debate, it's not a question here, but he then goes on to say that in morality and in values, that according to humans and the way that we desire things and our preference, that really 1 + 1 = 2 may not really mean 1 + 1 = 2. It could be 3, 4, 5. It's just that we've come up with that rule, and therefore we come up with the moralities and values. What would you say to that?
Well, if he's not sure that 1 + 1 = 2, I don't know what he does for a living, but if he builds anything that I have to risk my life on, like a car or an airplane, let me know, please. I want off of that thing right now. That you have to have people get off of that road. Man, oh man. I don't follow that logic at all. I give him a benefit of the doubt and say, explain yourself, but so far, that makes no sense.
Okay.
Next one.
When we look into the universe, we see patterns of events. There is no corner of the universe that declares certain of its events that declare good and evil, right and wrong. It's humans that project our own preference and desires.
Well, let me make some notes here. As far as looking at the universe and seeing patterns of events, I think I could agree. You know, we see the sun come up at a certain time every day, and we see the moon come up, and we see the stars. If that's what he's talking about, sure, I agree. Does that therefore teach morality? No, of course not. We see the tides come in, the tides go out. We see the rivers flow into the ocean and evaporate and condescend back down later someplace else. And we see a water cycle. So yeah, we see events that are predictable sometimes, sometimes not too predictable like the weather. But what does that have to do with morality? Maybe nothing. But to me, it shows that the designer is ordered and regular and dependable. So that's a good moral value to have. Can you be depended upon? Can you be consistent? We see gravity seems to work in all places on the planet equally, follows a certain law. Okay, that to me says, okay, God, who makes the law of gravity, the laws involving light and magnetism and everything else, is probably also going to give us reasonable laws about behavior and society and family and structure and morals. I don't think it proves that, but it's a good indicator that the lawgiver is logical, rational, and correct. So that would be my take on that one.
Where do our notions of right and wrong come from? It comes from the drumming of evolution, the product of apish urges and social emotions, and then they get modulated by culture.
So he's making a statement from the Pope's cathedral there. He says this is how it happened. Don't question it. Is that what I'm getting out of that? Is he asking a question, or he's making a statement? He's pontificating.
Yeah, exactly. He's making a question, and then he's making a statement. Is all. He's, basically, it comes from the drumming of evolution, the product of apish urges and social emotions that get modulated by culture, and therefore that's where we get our morals.
All right, brother. He said, where do our notions of right and wrong come from? They come from our apish. What was the next word?
They come from our apish urges and social emotions, and then they are modulated by culture.
Our apish urges. So we're just an animal. Well, I think he needs to study a little bit about how ape society works, okay? If they have someone who gets old and infirm and becomes a hindrance on the apish society, they kill him. They'll beat him to death. Is that what he's saying? We should kill the elderly? Kill the infirmed? Show me any apes that have abortions. This is beyond stupid, in my opinion. Okay, it's right down the word farm, F-A-R-M. According to the evolution theory, we evolved from fish to amphibians to reptiles to mammals. F-A-R-M. So, according to what Sam has said, and I don't know who Sam is or where he lives or what he does or anything about him, but he says we got our morals from apish urges. Okay. That means the apes must have got it from the reptiles. And the reptiles must have got it from the amphibians. And the amphibians must have got it from the fish. And ultimately, if you go back far enough, they got it from a rock. So I don't know what kind of urges a rock has, or a fish, or amphibian. But this is all animal instinct, okay? This is a silly place to get any moral fabric or moral standards, and certainly not to have a society run that way. I think you'll find in almost all of the animal societies, the strongest terrorize or banter the weakest. Is that what you really want? Is it the strongest financially or the strongest physically? I thought we wanted equality. This is, I think, is silly on its face. So if he wants to get his morals from there, that's fine. But don't push that off on anybody else. And certainly that's not scientific at all. All right, that's all I had on that one.
That's a classic answer. Okay. In the viewpoint of science, it can't really be wrong to cheat on your spouse. And it's how apes worry when we worry with words.
I didn't follow that. In the viewpoint of science, it can't be wrong to do what?
In the viewpoint of science, this is a follow-up. Oh, actually, I actually went too far here. Sorry about that. Okay, sorry, I went a little too far. Take sexual jealousy, for example. Over millions of years, our ancestors were highly covetous of one another. This possessiveness gets enshrined in cultural institutions like marriage.
knows where he's really after. He's really after sexual promiscuity and freedom and adultery, fornication, blah, 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 etc. Many people just simply don't like God's rules. Like they said one time in the New Testament, we will not have this man reign over us. Some people don't want God's rules. So I think that you'll find even Charles Darwin, the real root behind everything he did, and Thomas Huxley, and most evolution is all through history. If you really peel away all the layers of the onion, you're going to find out it is sexual freedom that they want. They don't like God's rules. That's the real problem. So that's a great admission. Thank you, Sam. I appreciate you admitting that. I spoke at Berkeley University. Nobody would debate me, so I just simply spoke for an hour and a half and took questions for another hour and a half. Afterwards, I'm out at the table with my videos. People are buying videos, and this big old football player guy from Berkeley, he was so angry, it was just obvious. He said, evolution is a fact. I said, son, calm down. He said, but it's a fact. I said, well, let me ask you a question. Suppose what I said tonight is true. Suppose there's a creator. Suppose there are some laws, some real, unchangeable, inflexible standards. Would that change your lifestyle if you had to believe that? He said, totally. That would totally change my lifestyle. I said, okay, well, let me ask you a question now. Have you selected this evolution theory because you really have some evidence, or because you like the freedom from God and his rules? He was real quiet for a minute, and he said, well, I've selected evolution because I'm horny. I said, well, son, I taught biology for years. I can assure you that every male of every species is horny, from termites to whales. That's the way God made it. But that doesn't give us any justification to abandon the Creator's rules.
Yeah.
And so Sam has made it a great admission there. Thank you, Sam. I appreciate that. Okay, next question.
The statement like, it's wrong to cheat on one's spouse seems like a mere summation of these contingencies. It seems like an improvisation on the back of biology.
Back to the same thing. This is his real issue here. Why is it wrong to cheat on your spouse? Why is anything wrong? Is premarital sex wrong? Is extramarital sex wrong? Is sex with your daughter wrong? Is sex with your dog? How about sex with a tree? How about sex with is anything wrong? If anything is wrong, please tell me why and how you decided that. This is the whole problem with evolution. They don't have a standard to go by. They don't know what's right and wrong. That's why we don't want them steering the ship. They have no clue where they came from and no clue where they're going. They need to sit down and ride, and let's find somebody to run this thing who knows where we came from and knows where we're going. That's the simple solution here. But no, he's being honest. He's saying, look, it's really sexual freedom, and if evolution is true, there are no morals, there are no rules. It would not be wrong to have sex with your baby or sex with your daughter or sex with your dog or sex with your goat. There's no such thing as right or wrong if evolution is true. Mm-hmm. So that really exposes the heart of the matter. Thank you.
Yeah.
Next question.
In the viewpoint of science, it can't really... I mean, you've answered this already. Maybe we can move on. But in the viewpoint of science, it can't really be wrong to cheat on our spouse, and it's how apes worry when we worry with words.
Well, science deals with what we observe, study, demonstrate, test, etc. There are other things besides science in the world. There are things that cannot be observed or studied or tested or demonstrated in the laboratory. So science is not all knowledge. Science is one field of knowledge. It is unrelated to many other fields of knowledge. So he's right that science can't determine right or wrong. That doesn't mean there isn't a right or wrong.
This call is from the Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office.
But only that science can't determine that. So science has limited, and I love science. Boy, do I love lots of things about science, but it's very limited in what it can do.
Okay.
Okay, next question.
To say Yahweh said you can't cheat on your spouse, but it's perfectly fine for genocide, slavery, and human sacrifice.
sure who Yahweh is. I've heard that over and over. But let's assume that means God, which I think it probably does. But I just use the King James God or Lord God. That's fine with me. I don't need Yeshua or Yahweh. I'm not trying to impress anybody. It's just Jesus, Lord God, etc. But he said to say Yahweh said you can't cheat on your spouse. Well, that is certainly what the Bible teaches. Is it okay if your spouse cheats on you? I mean, why would he be jealous if his wife is running around with other men or other women or other children? Or is anything wrong? Anything? What if your wife had a lover that was a cow? You know, I don't know. Yeah. People do this, and there are weird things that happen in some of these strange religions. That's what's the problem with the Canaanites. And God said, we're going to have to just kill them all. They're so full of diseases, and this is horrible. God's law is wonderful. It's best. But it's really, sexual freedom is really what they're driving at. That's one of the main points of the whole evolution theory, the whole evolution teaching. Ask any professor who teaches evolution. You just keep asking. This is one of the main nuggets of their whole this is what they want. They want to get rid of God's laws, and they want complete freedom to do what they feel like doing. It's Romans chapter 1 is where it goes. They don't want to retain God in their knowledge, so God gives them up, and they end up with homosexuality. That's the final stopping point for most of them, right there in Romans chapter 1. Mm-hmm. Okay, let me call back.
Okay. Real quick before we move on, what about him suggesting that it's perfectly fine for genocide, slavery, and human sacrifice?
Well, I'd like to see where he gets that from the Bible.
Right.
Under evolution is perfectly fine for those things. Where would the standard under his evolution religion be against any of those things? I mean, if the strongest survive, what's wrong with the strongest enslaving the weakest to do their work for them? That way you don't have to go work. If I'm strong enough, I can force you to go plow the field and plant the corn, and I get to eat it. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with anything? Where did he determine right and wrong? Mm-hmm. Now, the only times there were what he's calling genocide in the Bible were examples where they needed, for medical reasons, for obvious, as we've already mentioned, certain people, certain sins cause diseases that are rampant in the system, and God said, look, for the good of everybody, I want you to wipe them out. God gave those people plenty of chances to repent and to get right, and God tried to reach them. They didn't. Were we wrong to drop the nuclear or atomic bomb on Hiroshima and wipe out the whole city just about? To kill babies over there? Or was there a bigger picture here that they knew, the generals knew, hey, if we invade Japan, every citizen is going to stand up with pitchforks and anything they can get. They're going to resist us to the last man. Our choice is wipe out two cities or wipe out a whole country. Were we right or wrong in that decision? And I think everybody that studies it will say, well, it was a very tough decision and it's horrible, but that was the best option at the time. Wipe out two cities to save millions and millions of lives. Genocide, and what was the other one?
Slavery and then human sacrifice.
Well, God never authorizes human sacrifice. The people did it in the Bible. God never authorizes it. Some religions today authorize it and encourage it. Okay? Where is he coming down against those religions? Watch the news. Is he speaking out against what's happening right now in Syria to the Christians that are being sacrificed, just beheaded? Is he speaking out against that at all? As far as slavery, God never authorized it. They had it, and God said, here's the rules. If you have a slave, he didn't say they should have one, but if you have one, treat him nice, and after 6 years, let him go. They can work for their freedom. So I think I don't know where he's getting this from.
Okay.
Next question.
Correct. Okay. In claiming that values reduce to the well-being of conscious creatures, let me go through that. That's sorry about that. Imagine the universe devoid of consciousness. It is covered in rocks. There is no happiness or sadness. There is no good or evil. For changes in the universe to matter, they have to matter at least potentially to some conscious system.
Where on earth did this guy go to school? What? Who would think of such a thing? A universe devoid of consciousness, and so once matter comes, I don't want to paraphrase incorrectly, is he saying that once matter came to life, it was able to have consciousness?
Correct.
How does he even know we're here having this conversation? How does he know he's alive? How does he know anything is true? We're not really here. We just think we're here. Okay, well, you just can't argue with somebody like that. So,
yep.
You can imagine anything you'd like, but the fact is, we're here. We are aware of our existence. We're aware of the incredible complexity. We're aware of some amazing things like beauty and love and emotions. Like, where would that come into an evolutionary scenario? Why would there be appreciation of beauty? Do apes appreciate a picture? They put a typewriter out in some apes to see if they would type anything intelligent. Instead, they defecated and urinated on it, threw it around in the bushes.
Okay.
I think we're so many levels above the apes and everything else. At least most people are. Yeah. I've seen some that aren't very far above them. Go ahead.
Okay. Well-being of conscious critters and the link between morality may seem open to doubt, but it shouldn't.
The well-being and the link between who now?
Well-being of conscious creatures, because that's his whole basis, is that, the well-being, the ultimate well-being is where we find morality, and then everything that degrades from the ultimate well-being is just morality constructs that have been modulated by culture and humanity. So that's what he means when he says well-being. Well-being of conscious. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I think it would greatly increase my well-being if he would give me everything he owns. Sign it all over to me, and go jump in the ocean and feed the sharks. You could lower the population and save endangered species and increase my well-being. 3 birds with 1 stone. Wow, it doesn't get any better than that.
Yeah. So this is.
See if he'll do it. Ask him.
If he hears this, you could ask him. That'll be a question he can answer.
Okay.
Okay. Next one. This is the question. Well-being of conscious creatures and the link between morality may seem open to doubt, but it shouldn't.
Okay, I can't answer that one. If he doesn't see any problem there, there's a proverb about that, that's for sure. I think it's 14:7. So let's move on to the next one.
Okay. Imagine the universe. Okay. Yeah, right. Imagine the universe in whichever conscious creature suffered as much as it possibly can for as long as it can. The worst possible misery for everyone is bad. If the word bad applies to anything, it applies to this statement.
Well, so every conscious creature suffered. I guess we'd have to define what is suffering. In his scenario, what is suffering? Is it suffering for him to pick an apple off the apple tree and eat it? I mean, does the apple tree suffer? If so, he should stop eating anything. And you certainly should stop breathing because, man, you're using up oxygen that other animals need. You're creating suffering for other animals just by breathing. Just stop. Don't breathe anymore. And standing. Wow. You are compressing the earth right where you're standing. You certainly shouldn't stand any place on earth because who knows what creatures are suffering down under your feet, what microbes. And when you breathe in and breathe out, how many bacteria and microscopic creatures do you kill? They get stuck in the saliva. They get stuck in the mucous membrane of your lungs, and it murders them by the hundreds of millions every minute. Wow. Yeah, we've got to stop the suffering. There's too many people, and we should start. He should volunteer for this. He should go on his own. And I've heard there are some great white sharks that are endangered species. So really, I like the shark idea. That would solve both. This is silly at multiple levels. Okay. Exactly what is suffering? Exactly what is well-being? He can't define either of those terms.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, next one.
Okay. If you think the worst possibly if you think the worst Okay, here we go. If you think that the worst possibility of misery isn't bad, or it has a silver lining, or that it has something worse, I don't know what you are talking about, and I don't think you know what you're talking about.
Well, he's right. He doesn't know what he's talking about. It's such a broad question. When a woman suffers to bring a baby into the world, is she glad she did it? Yeah. I mean, how can there be suffering if evolution is true? You have to have a standard to measure even that by. What are you measuring this against? Does it all go based upon your euphoric feelings? And when you're feeling high or emotionally excited, that's considered good, and anything other than that is suffering? Well, I'm suffering for lack of finances, so give me all your money, and I'll be happy. I won't suffer anymore. I think it's a wonderful solution. And the sharks, they are starving out there right this minute. Hurry, go feed them.
What? That's right. What I'm saying is the minimal standard of moral goodness is to avoid the worst possible misery to everyone. If we have a moral duty to do anything, it is to avoid the worst possible misery for everyone. Let me read that again. What I'm saying is the minimal standard of moral goodness is to avoid the worst possible misery to everyone. If we have a moral duty to do anything...
Yeah, I heard the question. This is going to create a whole host of problems. Who's going to make these decisions? And what if somebody doesn't want to cooperate? Are you then going to make a larger government where you can force people to do things at the point of a gun, i.e. increase taxes or something like that? Is welfare to pay people who won't work or can't work or don't want to work? That sounds wonderful. It sounds merciful, but
This call is from the Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office.
you may be taking money from people who don't want to give it. Where are you going to find this moral agent to supervise all this taking and giving and even? This is communism 101 is what he's preaching here. Everybody should give everything to the benevolent government, and they will divide it equally, and nobody will suffer. This is Saul Alinsky, Communism, Karl Marx 101. I mean, this is classic. And that's where evolution leads. The communism is founded on the evolution theory. So is Nazism and a bunch of other isms. I covered that in video number 5 of my series. But yeah, if he wants to give his money to feed the poor and equalize the suffering, go for it. But don't force everybody to do it. If it's voluntary, I'm in favor of it. And I give a lot to help a lot of people. I always have and always will. But you want to make it mandatory via government intervention? That's where we've got to say, hold it. This isn't right. Okay? They got supper coming in about 3 minutes, brother. Give me one more here.
Okay. As soon as you admit, well, actually, as a moderator, let me ask you: if there's an example if he wants bigger, larger government. Well, what if in his political sphere, what if he likes anarchism? What if he doesn't want government?
Well, then you get the strongest surviving. Mm-hmm. If he wants no government, anarchy, and he comes over to his neighbor's yard to steal his lawnmower, and his lawnmower is bigger than him or a better shot, then he's going to shoot him. And who's to say that's wrong? Yeah, no, we definitely need government. I'm in favor of government, but government has to be governed too. And God is in favor of government. God told Noah getting off the ark. Genesis 9. right? Just fresh off the ark. He said, Noah, if anybody kills anybody, y'all get together and kill him. Establish a system where wrongdoers are punished. Mm-hmm. God is the creator of government and law, and it's wonderful and good. It has to be watched and limited because it tends to climb out of its cage and want to take over everything. But as long as somebody's not injuring or harming somebody, leave them alone. But no, I'm not for anarchy at all. Mm-hmm. I'm very much in favor of constitutional government. Mm-hmm. Very much in favor of that.
As soon as you admit we should avoid the worst possible misery for everyone, you must also admit all other states of the universe is better than the worst possible misery for everyone.
Well, that's a convoluted way of saying nothing, I think. But how does he propose avoiding the worst possible misery? Is this his excuse for big government? Is this government going to do this? Is this communism 101? See, for a long time in America, the church took care of the needy people, the homeless, the people with food problems, etc. Why is the government involved in this at all? I think that, sure, I want to avoid misery for everybody, and I help people all I can, but I think there's a hidden message here. His solution is, yeah, the government should do this. And boy, that's a red flag with me, and I think should be with everybody else. They need to read Davy Crockett's story before, I think that's posted on 2peter3.com about the welfare and Davy Crockett's conversion away from the idea that the government should do it. No, the government does not have any right to give one dime away to anybody for any kind of welfare. That's a private issue from the people. Because where does the government get their money? From everybody at the point of a gun. So I fear that his what he's really driving at is their big government here. Anyway, go ahead, next one.
Okay. The experience of conscious creatures is dependent on some laws of nature, where there will be right and wrong ways to move on this continuum.
How does he tell right from wrong? He never has done anything with that. Right and wrong ways to move on this continuum. Who's going to do this moving? Okay, right now the zebras are suffering over in Africa because the lions are chasing them all the time. How does he propose to fix that? Right now the worms are suffering because the birds are flying down and grabbing them and yanking them out of their hole and eating them. Does he want to fix that? Right now, the bacteria that are in the air are suffering because when you breathe them in, they get stuck in the mucus lining of your lungs and they slowly die a horrible death. Does he want to fix that too? Exactly. Who is suffering, and how does he propose to stop this? Are the chickens suffering because the farmers are out there killing them and cooking them for Kentucky Fried Chicken? Are we going to stop that too? What about the tomatoes? Do they suffer because people eat them? What about the poor grass? People mow it, man. It's trying to grow, and they get out there with a lawnmower and cut the head off. Cruel, unusual punishment. I mean, where would you stop? This is insane. Who's deciding who's suffering? Does he have a house that he lives in, or he built this on top of somebody's, anthill? Did they kill a bunch of innocent ants to pour the concrete driveway for him to drive his car on? I mean, come on, this is, and especially when you get to the question, okay, who's going to decide and who's going to make is it more government? Boy, now we got a problem. This is where in the Bible, private property ownership is the solution. I take care of my property. Yeah, I think that this is communism 101 in my humble opinion. So I wouldn't trace that rabbit any further. I think he's dead wrong.
Yeah.
Hey, go ahead.
Okay. This next statement, what Sam Harris says next is, the Taliban is my favorite example. It seems common sense to not throw battery acid in the faces of young girls who are trying to learn how to read. This is an example of the truths of biology, neurology, psychology, sociology, and economics.
So he doesn't want to throw battery acid in the face of young girls that are trying to learn to read. And you're saying the Taliban does that?
Yes.
Well, the Taliban is wrong. And they shouldn't do that. I agree. But who's going to stop this? Does he go over there and stop it? Tell him go on over there. Let's see how he stops it. Yeah. Or does he want to call the U.S. military that all of us have to pay for and put their life at risk? If he's concerned about that, go stop it, man. Go grab that Taliban guy by the beard and say, stop. Just stop.
Yep.
Yeah, see how that works for him. Okay, go ahead. That's
right. Okay. As a moderator, I'd like to say. So, what would your in accordance to this example about the Taliban throwing acid in girls' faces, and then stopping murderers, or whatever the case being, that what he would consider immoral, okay, or what we would consider immoral by the Bible standards, what would you do? How would you go to propose making a change in culture, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera?
Well, I think that the Christianity, the spread of Christianity is the solution. That gets to the heart rather than changing the people from the outside. If you want to start making a list of evils that are happening in the world, I mean, that would be 1 million pages long. There is, look, in the Muslim countries where there's sex slavery, or about the Mormons where they have multiple wives and they marry a 15-year-old girl whether she wants to or not. Should we stop? Who's going to do all this? What about the countries like India where they want to cripple their babies so that they can beg and get more money? I mean, are you going to go stop that? What about the people that are starving from Bangladesh? And come on, the suffering in the world is incredible. I agree, but how would he fix it and stop it? He picks one example, and we can pick 5 million more examples. Think about the poor seals up there in Alaska. Those polar bears rip their guts out and eat them. Why don't you go up there and save the seals? It sounds wonderful. Oh, yes, let's go save these poor girls from the Taliban. How are you going to do it, and who's going to pay for it?
This call is from the Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office.
Of course, the Taliban disagrees. They think they're doing the right thing because they don't think girls should read. They should be dumb and stay home barefoot and pregnant. That's their thinking. Okay, well, are you going to simply stop their action or change their heart? The solution is Jesus Christ in the heart. That's the real long-term solution. If you stop them, then you got who's going to pay? Who's going to sit over there and watch them all the time so they don't? You're going to watch every Taliban member and every girl in these countries so they can learn to read. Who's going to do this? Right. This is crazy. Go ahead.
So let me act like Sam Harris here, because I know he'd say it. So what you're saying is that we need to abide by the Christian Bible that advocates genocide, and I know you already answered this question, but this is what he would say. So a Bible that wants genocide, slavery, and everything's okay, and you want to be an isolationist and keep to yourself in your own little Christian bubble while all this atrocity is happening around the world. Is that what you're saying?
No, I did not say that. There's loads of atrocities happening in the world, including the teaching of evolution, lying to kids, teaching them their grandpa was a rock, teaching them the embryo has gill slits, even though that was proven wrong in 1874. There are 50-some lies in the average textbook. I think that's an atrocity. I'm trying to stop that. I think there's people out there teaching the earth is billions of years old. I think that's stupid. I think it's scientifically inaccurate. I think it's demonstrably wrong, and it's dangerous. It teaches them to doubt the Bible. We take away their moral compass, their moral standard. I think the teaching of evolution is one of the biggest dangers in the world, and I think I've devoted a large chunk of my life and worked awfully hard to stop that. So I'm working really hard to stop stuff. And if he is out there teaching some of these things or using these lies in the textbooks, then I'll try to stop him. But I'll only use lawful ways. I'll expose the evil, expose the stupidity. I'm working hard. Everybody has their dragons to slay. And mine, God has given me the gift of seeing the idiocy of this stupid evolution religion. So yeah, I don't think kids should be lied to. They shouldn't be taught their grandpa was an ape, and we got our morals from apes. Study the apes, and they'll rip your face off. Yeah. They don't have any conscience. Go study them. Mm. So, yeah, I don't know. How he's going to fix this is still a question I've got. What do you propose? Why pick the one example of the Taliban when there's 10 billion more examples? Yes, there's evil in the world. And the solution is Jesus Christ.
Amen. Questions of right and wrong depends on minds. Our minds are dependent on the laws of nature in some way. Morality and human values can therefore be understood in science.
Well, that is silly. Whose mind? In his mind, or my mind, or Hitler's mind, or Stalin's mind? I mean, everybody's mind is different. And our mind is more than just laws of science. It's more than just gray matter. It's more than just electrical impulses. There seems to be something, there's a moral conscience. This question has been well answered many times by other people. That's more of their expertise. Even my son, Eric Hovind, he does a lot of stuff on this, on the philosophy behind evolution. He'd be really good to question on that. But as far as determining right and wrong in the mind, okay, well, as long as I'm the one, Kent Hovind, who gets to decide, then let's go for it. Now, if we're going to let Adolf Hitler decide right and wrong, I'm going to have to disagree with that. If we're going to let Sam decide, I'm going to have to disagree with that. I think, in my mind, it's wrong to let teachers lie to their students. So they should not be allowed to lie. Period. Don't, especially at taxpayer expense. Don't lie to your students. So stop teaching there's guilt. Let's stop teaching the earth is billions of years old. Stop teaching great-great-grandpa was an ape, and before that a rock. Stop teaching all that. That's lying to the kids. We're destroying their morals. Get that out of the textbooks. Yeah, I think having a human mind to be the basis of right and wrong is a dangerous thing to do. That would be silly. Wrong. Seriously wrong. Okay, next question.
Okay. Consider, and there's a run up on this. That's why. Okay, there's a run up to this. Consider physical health. Physical health is very difficult to find. If you could live until the age of 40, it used to be where you could live until you were the age of 40 and you were healthy. Now lifespans have doubled. What does health mean?
What on earth does that have to do with the discussion on creation evolution? We've had a lot of interesting discoveries that have lengthened human life, that other cultures have always had long lifespans. The Hunzas in Pakistan or India, wherever they are, in the valley of Shangri-La, where the story comes from, they had lived up to the 130s and 40s, very healthy lives. I think, but I don't think how this got anything to do with the creation evolution. I think he's going off track there. I think God gave us incredible bodies, incredible minds, incredible nature, and we can find everything we need as far as nutrients, vitamins, minerals. I think there's been a lot of perversion of that with using drugs, which treat the symptom instead of the cause of the problem. You know, if you're low in protein and you get a headache, you can take an aspirin and get rid of the headache. But you didn't get rid of the problem, you're low in protein. Or, whatever. If you're low in calcium, you get a cramp in your leg muscle. Okay? Should you take a pain killer to kill the pain in the leg muscle, or should you take some calcium to get rid of the cause of it? So that our modern medical whole profession is basically treating symptoms, not causes. So that would raise alarms with me, and I think should with everybody.
Okay.
Okay, next question.
This is a little bit lengthy, but I'll read it. It's a little lengthy, but most of it's kind of just wordage. I mean, there's really no meaning. How fast should a healthy person be able to run? That question may not have an answer, but this does not make the question of health a matter of opinion or cultural construction. But the distinction of a healthy person and a dead person is as clear and consequential.
Yes, I agree. Dead people can't run very fast. I think we would agree on that.
Oh.
Is he going somewhere with this?
Notice no one is ever tempted to attack the philosophical underpinnings of medicine, like questions like, what do you mean vomiting isn't healthy? What if you meet someone who wants to vomit until he dies? How can you argue he is not as healthy as you are?
I think his his questions and statements and comments are getting dumber by the minute.
Yeah, that's right.
What on earth is he driving at?
Yeah.
How would the vomit reflex evolve? I mean, for millions of years, people would have accidentally ingest poison that they needed to vomit, but they didn't have the vomit reflex, so they died. So for millions of years, everybody died until finally somebody evolved this. How would thousands and thousands of amazing little reflexes the body has that are just essential for survival that couldn't happen piece by piece? I mean, some people may vomit to the point where they die. There are people who make themselves vomit. Their diseases, bulimic or whatever it's called. But what does that have to do with creation or evolution? The fact that the human body is unbelievably complicated, and sometimes there are little problems, and it's like saying a Corvette, which has all these thousands of parts, but it's got a flat tire. Oh, well, that proves it's no good. Nobody made it. No, it's got a problem. That one does. Fix it. There are human bodies that have billions of things that are right and one little thing wrong. Okay, that doesn't prove nobody designed it. Proves that one has a problem, either from genetic decay over the centuries or from improper food or from improper care. You cannot care for your Corvette and blow the engine up. Don't change the oil, or there's all kinds of things you can do to destroy a complicated machine. You can pour Pepsi on your computer keyboard and cause some problems. You can plug it into 440 instead of 110 and cause a few problems for your computer. The fact that you can destroy a wonderful machine doesn't mean nobody designed it. And the fact that we can damage our health and our body doesn't mean nobody designed it. The fact that people can vomit till they die, what on earth is he talking about? This makes no sense to me at all. Okay, next question.
I know, brother. Well, I got to try to stay neutral as a moderator. Okay, so when we talk about morals and values, we are talking about mental health and health of societies. And science has always been in the value business.
He's getting further and further off the track. I agree. But does he want the government to fix all this? This is the underlying theme of everything, is saying, wow, look at all these problems. Send more money. Let the government fix it. This is just the anti-solution.
Yep.
The Bible says in First or Second Thessalonians chapter 3, if you don't work, you don't eat. That's a great welfare program. You don't work, you don't eat. That'll cure it real quick. Go ahead.
That's right. Okay, what? And this is going to be leading up after questions after this. What if someone says, I'm a biblical chemist and I believe in Genesis that God created water before he created life?
Okay, what if? I agree. God created water before he created life. I would agree with that. Isn't water essential to life? Does he think life was created before water? What is he saying there?
Okay, here we go. Now let's get into this. So I take it to mean this biblical chemist believes, he's talking as if he's talking to the biblical chemist that believes that God created water. So I take it to mean this biblical chemist believes there were no stars and no stars to fuse helium and hydrogen into oxygen. Therefore, there was no oxygen to put in the water. So either God created water with no oxygen or special oxygen to put into the water.
Where on earth did this guy go to school?
I know.
God created everything perfect, flawless. God can create water, which includes hydrogen and oxygen, which, by the way, has a 104-degree angle between the molecules, like Mickey Mouse ears. If it had a 90-degree angle or a 180-degree, it would freeze solid, and ice would sink to the bottom of the pond, and the lakes would freeze from the bottom up instead of getting an ice coating floating on top. It's precisely because of that amazing 104, 105-degree angle that water molecules, when they freeze together, they form a lattice that expands 12%. Who designed that? Why do nearly all other liquids, when they freeze, contract, where water, when it gets down to about 4 degrees centigrade, or 30, whatever it is, 7 degrees, 30, I don't forget what it's like you calculated out, 33 and a half, 34 and a half degrees Fahrenheit.
Right.
Why does water all of a sudden, it's shrinking and shrinking, and then it begins to expand until it reaches the freezing point? Isn't that amazing design? Because if the lakes froze from the bottom up, all the fish would die. So for millions of years, all the fish died until the water molecules figured out how to be 104-degree angle instead of 180. You would think since the hydrogens are both positively charged on the water molecule, they would repel each other to the opposite side of the oxygen molecule. But no, 104-degree angle. Why not 180? That's amazing. See, my God created everything in 6 days, including hydrogen, oxygen, all the different elements. Is he saying there's hydrogen and oxygen? Actually, in the Big Bang Theory, you only get hydrogen and maybe some of the, element number 2 or 3. But how do you get? That's another whole long story. You can't get all these elements from hydrogen.
This call is from the Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office.
From the stupid Big Bang Theory. That's dumb. There's a book, in my book, What on Earth is About to Happen, I mentioned some guys, chemistry experts in Colorado Springs. I don't remember the name, and Littleton, Colorado, south of Denver. There's a fabulous book that they did on water. Oh, it is pretty heavy-duty reading. It's not for the high school student, but Eric and somebody else, and it's kind of a Cajun name like Boudreaux. But get my book, What on Earth's About to Happen, and look in there on part 1 or 2, and you'll see me reference them. I give their website, email, if you really want to go down long on that one.
This is his follow-up question / statement. What can I say about this biblical chemist? All I can do is appeal to scientific values, and if it doesn't share those, and if the biblical chemist doesn't share those values, aka his values, the conversation is over. If someone doesn't value evidence, then what evidence are you going to provide to prove that they should value it?
That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I do value evidence, and there are many people. I would suggest maybe you go to the Institute for Creation Research, ICR.com or org. They're in Dallas, Texas now. They've got some people on staff that are chemists and who are PhDs in chemistry and who would be much better able to answer that question. The idea that God, the designer, the infinite, all-wise creator, can take nothing and make molecules and chemistry is not a problem for me. He doesn't like that idea, so he's going to substitute that these chemicals and elements made themselves from nothing in a Big Bang. Where did this energy come from? Where did the material come from? Where did time and space come from? To me, in the beginning, God is a whole lot easier to believe than in the beginning, nothing exploded and made everything.
Right.
I don't care how many zillions of years you want to give it. That doesn't make any sense to anybody with one eye and half a brain. This doesn't make sense. There had to be somebody design it. You could point out that computers are 100% parts. I mean, they're physical parts. But they're designed to work together in such a way that they can do some amazing things. Our body is made of the 92 basic elements of the earth, I agree. But it's amazingly designed to go together to do things that are unbelievable. Just your brain probably has the storage capacity of thousands and thousands, if not maybe all, the computers in the world. Just stored in one human brain. It is unreal. And where is this information stored anyway? I mean, you open up the brain and you look at it, it looks like a glob of gray jelly. Where exactly is this information stored? I mean, then how is it stored? I don't think that's ever been answered yet. So we are, true, we're made out of chemicals, but we are off the charts amazing in our design. To me, I have no trouble. See, some people don't want to give God the glory, and so they simply deny He exists. The whole last half of Romans chapter 1 deals with guys like this. Actually, I wrote Sam's name in there, Romans chapter 1, verse 22. I write different people's names in my Bible. I write some next to Psalm 14:1. The fool has said in his heart, there's no God. Right. I gave him the honor of adding his name to my Bible next to Romans 1:22. His name is listed in the Bible. I hope someday it's listed in the Lamb's Book of Life. That's the one that's going to count to go to heaven or not,
Yeah.
But there's several folks. I've got their name in the margin of my Bible.
Okay, here's his next. It's a question. If someone doesn't value logic, what evidence are you going to provide to show evidence of logic?
I would ask him that same question. To me, it's logical that complicated things have a designer. That's perfectly logical, whether I ever meet the designer or not. I use the illustration often, but it bears repeating. If you're walking through the woods and you find a painting hanging on a tree, you look around, there are no footprints, there are no people, you holler out, hey, who's here? Nobody answers. What do you conclude?
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to find the painter. You may never find the painter. It doesn't matter. The painting is proof of the painter.
Mm-hmm.
End of story.
Yeah.
Now, it'd be nice to search for the painter and try to figure out why he did things, and you might actually study the painting and look at the color coordination and say, oh, wow, this guy's in a bad mood or a good mood or a joyful mood, and I don't know, I'm sure there's art connoisseurs can do that by what colors they use. Okay, you might determine quite a bit about the painter. You might say, wow, he's good with mathematics and perspectives and ratios and all this kind of stuff. But I don't need to meet the painter to believe he exists. I see his painting. I've never met Rembrandt. I see the Rembrandt paintings and say, wow, this guy understood Fibonacci numbers and positioning, 1.667% of the way over to the side and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't need to meet Henry Ford. I don't need to meet Henry Ford to believe he exists. I've seen the cars.
Yeah.
That's all. And so the idea that you have to meet the Creator to believe he exists is crazy. I see the creation. It's incredibly complicated. That's proof enough. And that illustration can apply to 1,000 things. I don't need... The building is proof of a builder.
Mm.
So to me, it would be absolutely foolish to not believe there's a creator. Now, I can study his creation and learn quite a few things about him and realize, something. I've still never met him, physically. I've served him for 46 years, and I've studied a lot about him. But I think I know a lot more now than I did then, but I still don't know it all. I probably never will. But, yeah, if he wants to talk about logic, I would say, there you go right there. It is perfectly logical to believe in a creator just based on his creation.
Yeah.
Just like it's perfectly logical to believe in a builder just by looking at his buildings. I went up to the house in Wisconsin. It got the infinity point sticking out there, and Frank Lloyd Wright designed it. Famous House on the Rock, I think was the name of it, or something like that. Amazing place. Toured it, went all the way through it, looked at it, said, man, this guy is a genius with architecture. I never met him. I saw his building. That's all I need. His building is enough evidence to convince me that he was a builder and that he existed. And I don't need to meet God to believe he exists. I think it'd be foolish to say you have to. And if Sam's going to wait until he sees God to believe he exists, well, hey, he's got a long wait. And I think he's taken the wrong approach. See, I decided I'm going to believe God until he's proven wrong. And other people have decided they're not going to believe God until he's proven right and proven to exist. And that's his choice, of course. I think Judgment Day mine's going to work out a lot better for me than his will for him. We'll see how that decision works out, Judgment Day.
Right, yeah. Right, yep.
Okay.
Excuse me. Excuse me.
You're getting the cough through the phone, huh?
Yeah, I wish I could take your cough. I'd take your cough any day, and that way you'd be all right. So.
Yeah, transmitted through the internet. Maybe they can be transmitted to the phone now too. I don't know.
Okay, here we go. There's another question from him. What are we really saying when we say science cannot apply to the most important questions of human life?
I don't know. What is he really saying? Science deals with observation, tests, demonstrations, etc. There's a lot of things science does not apply to. Can science analyze love, emotions, patriotism? No, it's just that's outside their realm. Science deals with the hard facts. There's physical science, there's biological science, there's earth science, there's different kinds of science. The word science just means knowledge. What do we know? What do we know about biology? Okay, well, you could study all about the brain and talk about the different lobes of the brain and the two halves, and the visual cortex and all. You can study all about the anatomy of the brain, but that still is not telling you how it works internally. And where is the information stored? Where did the information itself come from to begin with? How do we know anything? So, yeah, science is very limited to certain, endeavors. And it's wonderful. It's a great tool. My hammer and my saw are wonderful tools, but they don't build buildings. A person builds the buildings, and he uses those tools. That tool, it has to have a mind of a builder. You could lay the hammer and the saw out there for 4 zillion years, and it's never going to build a thing. They are just simply tools in the hand of a builder, hopefully a smart builder who knows how to do it, sometimes not too smart. But science is simply a tool to use to understand more about God, I think. Every time I apply scientific principles to, like, say, earth science or physical science, I see the hand of God every place. Like, whoa, he is so smart, look what he did. This is cool, Other people, they don't want to see it. Okay, don't see it then. Put your fingers in your ears and close your eyes and take off walking.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Okay, next question.
Okay. 9 million children die every year before they reach the age of 5. Think of the parents of these children. Most of these men and women believe in God and praying for their children to be spared, and their prayers will never be answered.
Okay, and his point is what? How many of those children die because of misapplications of science? For instance, we're vaccinating how many of these kids? How many of them are dying because of improper medicine? There's whole websites about that. Are vaccines even useful at all? I mean, should we even do them? I don't know. That's not my field here, but I think it's worth looking at. Maybe we're killing them and then blaming God for it. How many of these kids are dying because of problems in the family that wouldn't exist if we followed God's laws? Maybe it ought to be studied from that perspective.
Yeah.
Why would you blame God for that? I mean, if a drunk driver runs into a car and kills everybody in the car, including the children, is that God's fault? No, it's the drunk's fault.
Yeah.
Or maybe the guy who sold him the alcohol. Or maybe the Congress that allowed it. I mean, where would you stop? Where does the blame stop? I don't know. But certainly you can't blame God. God gets blamed for everything. I don't think much of it, if any of it's his problem. I think he told us how he wants things to be run, and we're not doing it.
This call is from the Center Logan County Sheriff's Office.
It'd be like if Ford sells you a car and they say, okay, change oil every 3,000 miles. And you say, oh, I don't want to. Okay, don't change oil. And then you blow the motor up eventually. Well, it's Ford's fault. No. Ford sold you a good car and they told you what to do and you didn't do it. So this is your fault. Don't blame Ford. You should have changed the oil. And so God gave us an amazing body and a set of rules. Here, guys, no premarital sex, no extramarital sex. It's simple rules. You know, I don't want to follow his rules. Okay, well, then when you get a disease, don't blame God. He didn't do it.
Right.
You did it to yourself.
Yep. Yep.
Okay?
Okay.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
Okay, let me read you this question, then you can call back, sir, if you want.
Okay.
Which I think you will, right? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
But according to Kent Hovind, this is all God's plan. Any God who will allow children in the millions to suffer and die, and their parents to grieve, in this way either can do nothing to help them or doesn't want to. Talking about God. Therefore, God is either impotent or evil. And got about 15 seconds, 20 seconds. Call me back, brother.
Okay, well, there's a couple more choices he hasn't thought of. Again, I wouldn't blame God for that. Let me call back and discuss it.
Okay.
All right, so if I recall the question, Kent Hovind says it's God's will or God's plan for these 9 million kids under 5 years old to die.
Yeah.
And so it's God's will for all this suffering to be in the world. Is that the question?
Yes. Let me say it again. Here we go. According to Kent Hovind, this is all God's plan. Any God who will allow children in the millions to suffer and die and their parents to grieve either doesn't want to help them, either cannot help them or doesn't want to. Either that God is impotent or evil.
Yeah, that's an old argument. That was from the 1800s. That it's limited down to two choices. You know, do you want red or blue? How about green? I don't want red or blue. So, you know, God's either impotent or evil. He cannot or will not help. This, of course, is silly, and the philosophy experts who've dealt with that, my son has got some really good stuff on that. But this is several faulty assumptions here. It's not God's plan. God has a wonderful plan. Man has messed it up.
Yeah.
Okay? Now let's go back to the Ford example. Ford has a wonderful plan. We're going to put a lot of money and time and energy into building this car, and if you'll follow these simple rules, you should run it for 200,000 miles. Okay. Well, if you decide not to follow the rules, change the oil, check the tire pressure, get a tune-up once in a while, yeah, you're going to shorten the life of this thing. I don't know how many of these 9 million kids are caused by some other humans doing the killing or suffering. Mm-hmm. Certainly a large percentage of them. But is it God's will? No, it's not God's will that anybody perish and go to hell. 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 9. God loves us. Now, does he want God to intervene on every little decision we make? Does he want us to be robots? Babies, you put them where you want them to stay, and then when they get to where they can crawl or roll around, then you put them in a crib. You say, no, you stay right here, or but eventually you want them to get their own free will where they can wander around, and you try to set boundaries and rules. No, boys, don't go out on the street. But what if they disobey and go out on the street and get run over by a car? Whose fault is that? Mm-hmm. Is that God's fault? Is that the mother's fault for not watching them carefully? Is that the boy's fault for being rebellious? Is that the driver's fault for not watching where he's driving? Is it a bunch of people's fault? I don't know. Mm-hmm. But why would you always blame God? The book The Shack has a great section on that. If you've never read, have you ever read The Shack, brother?
No, I have not. Nope.
I've read it 9 times. There are some theological issues with it, but it is just an amazing book. It was a gift from God. The guy who wrote it was raised on a mission field in Papua New Guinea. It's a novel, but you won't even after you're done reading it, you'll wonder, wow, is this a true story? I mean, it's really well written. Yeah. Basic summary: this guy lives in Oregon. He's got 2 kids in college, 2 in high school, and a 6-year-old daughter. Very question: is this God's fault? Where all can we put the blame? Mm-hmm. Maybe we should go all the way back to Adam and Eve. Maybe we should blame God for making Adam and Eve. If your kids do something wrong later in life, I'm sitting right here in a room next to guys that have done some really bad stuff, okay? A couple of them are going to prison for 24 years. They're just waiting to be transported, okay? Well, so whose fault is that? Is that God's fault for creating Adam and Eve? Where would the parents who had these kids who are now going off for 24 years in prison, or some have committed murder. I've been in jail with murderers. Okay, is that mom and dad's fault for even having the child? Are we going to blame mom and dad? Some of their grandparents. Let's blame grandparents. If grandparents had any kids, then they wouldn't be here either. So, I mean, it just, the logic behind this is really something to think about. Where exactly does the blame fall?
Yeah.
Does Sam have any kids? Have they done anything wrong? If they do anything wrong, if they steal something, is that now Sam's fault because he fathered those children?
Yeah.
Where do you stop? I think that's a slippery slope.
Yep.
I wouldn't follow that one. Okay.
Okay. And here he says, his follow-up. Worse is that according to Kent Hovind, most of these people will be going to hell for praying to the wrong God. Think about that. Through no fault of their own, they are born into the wrong culture and wrong theology and miss the revelation.
Trying to get the question down here. So I say they're going to hell for praying to the wrong God.
Yep, and being born into the wrong environment, the culture, etc., and theology.
Okay, well let's get this analogy and look at it from a different angle. You got 1,000 people on an island. They all have a deadly disease that's going to kill them. Okay, they're all infected with this disease. The whole island is infected. Various different people come in there with cures. A witch doctor comes in there and says, oh, if you rattle these bones over the top of your head, it'll cure you. Another person comes in and says, oh, if you stare at this flower for 3 days, it'll cure you. Another one says, if you sit here with your legs crossed and put your thumb and finger together and hum, you'll be cured. Another guy says, if you take this vitamin, you'll fix this problem. Another one says, you get all these different types of, how many different types of healers are there on the planet right now? There's the medical profession, which generally uses drug therapy. You have a pain, take a pill. There's the chiropractic profession, who thinks they can cure many things, and I believe they probably can. There's the reflexologist. There's all kinds of different ologies out there who all claim they've got the answer. So if these people on this island are now faced with a choice, what am I going to do? Which one am I going to follow? Maybe they've only heard about the witch doctor. They've never heard about the real doctor who can cure their problem in 5 seconds. Okay? So the person decides they're going to follow the witch doctor. And they rattle the bones over their head and they die anyway. Whose fault is that? Is it the real doctor who had the cure and didn't go tell them fast enough? Is it partly his fault? Is it the people who had the money to send 50 more doctors and didn't do it because they'd rather go drive their Mercedes or Rolls Royce or whatever? Is it their fault for not supporting the missionary doctors to go there to heal these people? Where would you spread the blame on this? The reason they died is not because they listened to the wrong doctor. The reason they died is because they had the disease. It wasn't the doctor or the witch doctor that killed any of them. It was the disease that killed them. Sam and everybody else on the planet has a fatal disease that's called sin. They're going to go to hell, whether they hear the truth or not. The fact that God has tried for 6,000 years to send people, sometimes at risk of life and limb, He's tried to send people to warn them and tell them. That shows God's mercy. Don't blame God for this. God is trying to get His message out. And some people have a financial interest in something else. Maybe the witch doctor's got a financial interest, and he goes and kills the doctor who's got the real cure.
Yeah.
Because people aren't coming to him anymore. It's not God's fault. It's the disease that kills them. It's people go to hell because they're sinners. Whether they hear the gospel or not, it's not the gospel's fault. It's not God's fault. They're sinners. They just deliberately disobeyed common sense rules that are built into everybody.
Yeah.
They broke God's natural law. Romans chapter 1 talks about that very thing. They knew, but they didn't want to retain God in their knowledge. Now, I think if there's somebody out in the jungles of someplace that has never heard of Jesus Christ, and they sincerely seek God, God will send them a missionary. There are missionary stories by the tens of thousands where they will say, now when I got there, the people said, we've been praying for you for 5 years. Tell us how to go to heaven. You read the book Peace Child by Don Richardson, or the book Eternity in Their Hearts. Eternity in Their Hearts by Don Richardson. He was a missionary in Papua New Guinea who, when he got to his tribe of people and learned their language and studied their culture.
This call is from the Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office.
He realized God had prepared them for the gospel with something built right into their culture. They're calling people all over the speaker here. My take on it would be God is not willing that any should perish, and He has put something into the heart of everybody, even in every culture, even in the pagan religions, even in the witch doctor cultures. They've got something inside they know. When Paul went to Mars Hill in the book of Acts, they had idols and altars all over the place, and he said, "You guys are too superstitious." He said, "I want to talk to you about the unknown God," because they had also built an altar to the unknown God, just in case we missed one. He said, "This is the one I want to talk to you about, the one you don't know. There can only be one God by definition. There can't be more than one God. That excludes everybody else, okay? There's one God. Everybody else may have a different title, but they can't be God, just by definition. By my definition of the word, certainly, it would exclude everything else. So I think those books, Eternity in Their Hearts and Peace Child, would be a classic read for anybody who wants to see the truth of God preparing people in the strangest places, the strangest ways. For instance, there was a missionary from Sweden who went to someplace near Vietnam. Let's call it Vietnam or Laos or Cambodia. And he's building his mission compound. 200 miles away, the people in, I think it's northern Vietnam, this is 200 years ago, maybe people are going to hell because you didn't go tell them. Maybe it's your fault. Maybe it's my fault. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's Sam's fault. If Sam would quit this chasing around looking for problems with the Bible and start telling people, maybe he can become a great missionary and get thousands of people converted and go to heaven. But to blame it all on Sam, not God.
Yeah.
Maybe he's destroying the faith of students that the students could have and should have become a missionary and done something. So maybe he's going to be partly to blame for that.
Yeah.